I'm Charlotte Adams and welcome to episode 3 of Marksmess Podcast, where we're with my dad.
Hello.
My sister.
Good day.
And me, Charlotte, look at the world of geekery using the alphabet as our guide. This month is the letter C.
C.
If you would like to email us at mymarksmess@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter on @Marksmess Podcast without the D, or on our webpage marksmesspodcast.blogspot.com, or like us on Facebook at Marksmess Podcasts.
Okay, and talking about emails, we have had our first email on Marksmess Podcast, which has made Katherine very excited. A bit too excited. Lex Pendragon was very kind to email us after our first episode went out. We're trying to do an episode or two ahead of our release schedule.
Why not fit?
Because I ignore the girl in the corner. He says this.
I came to your podcast after your appearance on the unofficial 75 Greatest Marvels podcast.
Okay.
We're a top 75!
And just to let the listeners know, I did appear on that with Blaine on the unofficial 75 Greatest Marvel podcast, talking about the Avengers #1. I didn't have the girls with me, so it was quite a smooth recording.
#1.
Really? That's why you two do not get invited on the podcasts. This is just embarrassing.
At least it's not a number 2. My side.
As a father of 3, 7 and 17-year-old daughters, who also podcast with morethanbits.net, I figured we had a lot in common, so I thought I'd check out your podcast. It was very fun, thank you. I'll be listening out for the letter B. Lex Pendragon.
Okay, thank you very much, Lex, for that. And he has his own podcast, morethanbits.net, so do check that out. I know I have.
So we've done the letter A, B, so now it's time for the letter C. I'm presenting because I am the letter C, with my name being Charlotte. And Katherine and Daddy.
Daddy and Katherine.
Katherine and Daddy.
Daddy and Katherine.
Katherine and Daddy.
Whoa! Only me and Katherine do that.
Sorry.
Okay, you're forgiven. For now. Katherine, what are you doing for the letter C?
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
So, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Yes.
I remember once we read Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and then every time we read it, we got
Oh,
chocolate.
I love that.
And we always read it in her room.
Tell us the story of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
It's about a boy called Charlie who doesn't have any money that much, and his dad works in a toothpaste factory.
Factory, yes.
Factory. And then one day there's a competition to see who can get golden tickets, and there's 5 of them.
Who makes the competition?
Willy Wonka.
And who's Willy Wonka?
He's a chocolate factory maker.
He's a chocolate maker.
No, he's a chocolate factory maker.
Surely a chocolate factory would melt in the sun.
No, but he did make a palace for somebody who died it. Oh, no, he didn't die.
Is that in the book?
Yeah.
Because I haven't actually read the book. I've read bits of the book to you guys, but I've only seen the 2 movies.
I know,
I've seen
because
the one movie.
I get confused in the book. But then in school, sometimes when we read a book, then when I read it at home, then it's more interesting when my teacher would. And then there was 5 people who could get it. Now it was Augustus Gloop, Violet Beauregard, Mike TV, Veruca Salt, Charlie Bucket. And then, at first he didn't get it a couple of times, but then he did. Because he found £10 lying in the ground, so he decided to get a chocolate bar, and then he got it, and then everybody crowded around him in the newsagent shop, but then the newsagent was kind of, and then he got the crowd away, and then he ran home and then told his mum and dad.
Don't you just wish Katherine would actually do an audio book of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory?
Willy Wonka makes chocolate and has Oompa Loompas, and then there's a whole pile of Candyland, and then like there's like there's sweeties, and then like there's grass that you can eat, and then there's like trees that you can eat, and there's like these here like big jelly things that you can stomp on and eat, and then like there's like lots of like Oompa Loompas, and then there's a chocolate river, and then they get to go in a boat down it, and then they go to lots of different rooms, and then Charlie's the last one because everybody gets like something done to them, and then he wins the chocolate factory, but he doesn't want it because because he has to leave his family and never see them again. And then I can't remember
So
what
shall
happens
we
at the end.
stop there and let them read the book?
Yes. And would you
As
like to
you-
sit down and take a breath?
As you can see, Catherine is definitely in her comfort zone here.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So, Charlotte.
Willy Wonka is extraordinary. He's a chocolate-making genius who relishes nonsense.
Genius.
He can't abide ugliness in factories. He likes to make mischief, even if that means talking to the president of the United States whilst pretending to be a man from Mars.
What?
Wait, can I just
That's
say some what
in
is
the book. That's
What?
it in the book Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator.
Okay.
That's the second book. He appears in 2 of Roald Dahl's books, Charlie and Chocolate Factory and Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator. And his Chocolate Factory also appears in James and the Giant's Peach and the Giraffe and the Pelly and Me, also written
But
by
it
Roald Dahl.
also appears in more of Roald Dahl's books. That's news to me. Did you know that?
No.
I know.
Okay, don't need to deafen people. No, but I honestly didn't know that. Right, what about the... Catherine talked about the Oompa Loompas. In the original the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory movie from the 70s, they were orange. So tell me a bit about them.
So the Oompa Loompas are from Oompa-land. The Oompa Loompas are like Willy Wonka's minions, basically.
I think that's a very good description.
Yeah. They're from Oompa-land, which Mr. Wonka describes as a terrible place. Augustus Gloop is a young, fat boy who enjoys eating a lot.
Nothing wrong with that.
One of the other children is Veruca Salt.
I do love that name. It's just a disgusting name for a
A disgusting person.
It's a disgusting name for a disgusting child. She's a spoilt child. She only received the ticket because her father told his workers to try and find a ticket.
How did she meet her end?
Her father runs a peanut shelling factory.
Uh-huh.
So Mr. Wonka decided that they would take them into the peanut shelling room. That Veruca Salt, out of all the children, was amazed the most because instead of using people, Mr. Wonka used squirrels. Veruca Salt saw this squirrel that she wanted so much that she begged her daddy to have a squirrel. Her daddy says no, so she says, I only have so many animals, and the list goes on forever. I'll not read it to you because I'll be here forever.
Oh, good.
The squirrels all team up and throw Veruca into a rubbish chute, and her dad gets pushed in after her.
So who's next?
Violet Beauregard.
Beauregard. Okay.
Yeah. Violet is a record-breaking gum chewer, so when she sees Mr. Wonka's gum, she tries it and she ends up swelling into a big purple blueberry.
Okay, I remember this from the 1971 movie.
At the end, she becomes very flexible and purple.
Oh. She's
Just out.
I want that. I want to be like that.
We'll juice you out later on. Okay, next is...
Mike TV.
What's special about him?
He loves TVs and gadgets and just general gadgety things.
Okay. And how does he get dispatched from the factory?
Mr. Wonka invented a TV that can teleport one thing from one room to the TV. Mike decided he wanted to be teleported into the TV, and then he gets teleported into TV, and he's very, very small. That's why
Okay.
he meets his end.
When the object eventually appears in the TV, then you can reach out and grab it.
Right, so we're talking about all these children did something, shall we say, naughty in the factory that made it that they didn't get to win the factory in the end. Right? So Charlie didn't do anything wrong.
No, Charlie was the best of them all.
In one of the movies we watched in school, then Charlie and his grandpa Joe are the only ones who done something bad.
Yeah, in one of the movies, I don't know about the modern movie, but the older movie, they took some burping stuff and they burped their way to the ceiling. I don't know if that's in the book. And almost died.
That's in the book of the BFG where the girl Sophie tries some of the stuff and she ends up floating to the ceiling.
No, that's in Charlie and Chocolate Factory.
That's
That's
in
in
the
the
BFG.
old one.
No. Charlotte's talking about the books, you're talking about the movie. Sometimes in a movie they'll change what it says in the book. Now the I think it was 1971 movie, Roald Dahl, is that how? Dahl. Roald Dahl. He didn't like that movie because they changed things in it, and he didn't really think the guy who played Willy Wonka was a very good Willy Wonka.
I think the modern movies, if I saw the other movie, I think the modern movie is better.
Yeah, it is better.
Do you think Roald Dahl's books are a bit creepy?
They're crazy because they use gung
Gungfunk?
What?
Gumfuggle. It's the made up words. I can't remember what they're called.
Oh, with the BFG?
Gumfuggle.
Okay.
Gumfuggle, is that it?
What's it out of?
No, it's just what he calls the made up words.
So Roald Dahl made up words and he just called them gumfuddle or something like that.
Something like that.
Something like that. There's no point arguing over it if we don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. What is your favourite Roald Dahl book?
I like George's Marvellous Medicine and The Witches.
Mm-hmm.
I have read most of them, I would say. My favourite ones are the Twits and the BFG.
Okay. Here's a question. We talked in the first episode about David Walliams. How does he compare to Roald Dahl?
They're similar in a way, but not similar.
Oh, right. That's
It's
clear.
hard to.
I think they both come up with really imaginative stories, and
But
they're
the
not
fact-
simple moralistic stories.
I would say the fact that Roald Dahl makes up words would give him an edge.
Okay.
Because it would take a while to make up a word.
Catherine, do you think Raj from David Walliams' books would be at home in any Roald Dahl books?
Not really.
Do you think he would be at home around the corner selling Charlie Bucket a chocolate bar?
Mm-hmm.
Or would he try and sell him some frozen fish fingers? That I thought out.
Probably both.
I think Raj would be at home in the book The Twits. One of his best books is Boy, because it's about him. The
Sure.
first C was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which we got a lot of information squeezed out of. What is the second C, Daddy?
Okay, my C is Captain Britain. Is a Marvel Comics superhero based in Britain, back here in the UK. And he came about in 1976 by Chris Claremont, who's very famous for doing the X-Men. And Herb Tripp was the artist. And he's famous for being a Hulk artist. And also he did the very first appearance of one supervillain with claws. Who would that be? Wolverine. So they were tasked with creating Captain Britain. And if you see from this picture of his very first outfit, what do you think of it? It's basically a full body red outfit with a blue...
The Welsh line, I think.
Well, it's British. Usually, you find in England sports teams, they have got 3 lions on their chest, on their uniform.
Have?
Yeah. Well, not really.
I think there's 3 lions on William the Conqueror's shield.
Could well be.
Well, there's 3 yellow something.
I first got into Captain Britain just before Excalibur, and this is where this graphic novel. This is the Alan Davis collection. So just before, what do you think of his outfit there?
Very Brittany.
Very Brittany, yes. It's the red, white and blue outfit that's a wee bit like the Union flag, but with white trousers, which is quite impractical if you're a superhero, because there's bound to be brown trouser moments. I was actually given a read of this by a fellow I went to tech with, and it's probably the very first time. He also, I talked to somebody else about comic books, because now you just go online and you talk to people. There are podcasts all over the place, some great podcasts like
Marksmess Podcast!
Like Marksmess Podcast, and also ones that talk about specific comics like Fantasticast or From Crisis to Crisis or Dave's Daredevil Podcast.
Or Marksmess Podcast!
So this guy would lend me Captain Britain. He lent me the first Excalibur, the sword is drawn thing, which we could do for E, and he also lent me Secret Wars, and that sort of got me into comic books a bit more. It made me want to seek them out. Captain Britain is very much immersed in the Knights of the Pendragon. Do you know what that is?
Pendragon, it's the person that we got the email from.
Oh, that's true. Yes, Lex Pendragon. But it comes from Arthurian legend. When we talk about Arthurian legend, we're talking about King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. The wizard from King Arthur is Merlin. And it was Merlin who granted Bram Braddock, who is a hero.
I don't know him.
I've never heard of Merlin.
I've heard of him, but I don't know who he is.
He's basically the wizard in King Arthur's court.
I never heard of King Arthur's court.
You never?
No.
I have failed. When we go to Wales and Devon, we will talk about King Arthur and we will talk about Merlin.
I will go to Hamlet.
And we will go to Hamlet. That's nothing to do with it. Right, so he's got the ability to fly and he's super strong. So it was really Alan Davis for me who made the character good. So he did the art. And if you look at the art there and the art inside.
Oh, she looks happy. She looks like Joy out of what do you call it? Inside Out.
Yeah.
She does.
So that's Captain UK with the same uniform but from a different dimension. There are different dimensions in the Marvel universe. And what we call the Marvel, the one we've read with Spider-Man and all, that's called the 616 universe, and that comes from Captain Britain. Oh, he was given the superpowers by Merlin to protect Britain. To protect Britain.
Why him?
Why him? Because he had a motorbike accident and he was about to die. In fact, he probably did die, and Merlin brought him back to life.
But why him? Why not anybody else who died?
That's a good question, and I don't know the answer to that. You thought I'd try and bluff you. Because he embodied the spirit of Britain. Yes, he was a Tony Blair of his day.
Was he actually Tony Blair?
No. Tony Blair, I think he was the person he went up against. I think Tony Blair was actually Mad Jim Jaspers. But that's another story altogether, and that's getting political. When he was in his red suit, he needed his scepter, which is that big, long, golden rod thing, to use his power. So when he held that, he used his power.
So like a magical crystal or something?
A bit like that. In the Union flag suit, the suit actually helped him give power, because he went over to America without the suit. And he lost power. That is Captain Britain. So after the break, where we'll play some promos, and I only play promos of podcasts I do like and I do enjoy. So if you listen to the promo, and it's your promo, it's because I like you. You are cool. You're fantastic.
And he wants to marry you.
And I want to No! So after that, I'm going to read you one issue. Now, these comics were weekly, and there were more than one story in them, because this was a British comic. They were most likely black and white in those days, so it's only about 8 pages long. We will see you at the other end of the break.
Don't go away now.
This is an imaginary podcast, which may never have happened.
The Shortbox Showcase.
But then again may have. About a father and daughter. I'm Professor Allen.
And I'm Emily.
Who came from Ohio and talked about comics.
Walking Dead.
Tintin.
Black Lightning.
White Tiger. It tells of their rise to glory, when the great guests were yet to be booked.
Let's put it this way, Shogun Warriors wasn't going to win any Eisners.
And the great feats of editing not yet performed.
This is Ultra 7, this is Ultraman Jack, and this Ultraman Taro, and this Ultraman Leo, and this
of how they spoke at length.
This continuity is really the brainchild of nitpicking nerds the world over.
But to be fair, the best kind of confession is the Force confession.
And reviewed in brief tales that explore creatively the bounds of a given character's history.
Red Sun is wonderful with a very strange ending.
Of brilliant creators before their fall from grace. This is the era where Miller is at the height of his creative and artistic powers, and the ability of strong writing to encapsulate and transcend its time.
Flash of Two Earths by Gardner Fox.
This is an imaginary podcast. Aren't they all? Shortbox Showcase is part of the Relatively Geeky family of podcasts. Check us out on the web at relativelygeekypodcast.blogspot.com. Or search in iTunes for Relatively Geeky or Shortbox Showcase. And remember, we're not experts.
We're just family.
While attending a demonstration in radiology, student Peter Parker was bitten by a spider which had accidentally been exposed to radioactive rays. Through a miracle of science, Peter soon found that he had gained the arachnid's powers and had, in effect, become a human spider. Stan Lee presents
Spider-Man, Spider-Man, does whatever a spider can. Spins a web any size, catches thieves just like flies. Look out, here comes the Spider-Man.
Welcome to Amazing Spider-Man Classics, where every month I and some friends will be discussing every book, every guest appearance, and every cameo we can find of our favorite web-slinger, the Amazing Spider-Man. Are you tired of arguing over whether Ben Reilly should have taken over the webs? Do you grow weary of the brand new day with all its controversy? Then return with us to the early days. Return with us to the classics. Amazing Spider-Man Classics at AmazingSpiderman.libsyn.com.
To him, life is a great big hang up. Wherever there's a hang up, you'll find the Spider-Man.
Okay, doing the new promo. Do not say take the dare. Do not say take the dare. Okay, go. Hello, darling. Nice to see ya. It's me, J. David Weeder, the Conway Twitty of podcasting. But please call me Dave. I host a show called Dave's Daredevil Podcast, where I talk about Marvel's Man Without Fear and Netflix superstar Daredevil. But I'm here to tell you that things have changed. Don't worry, I've still got more hornhead goodness than you can shake a billy club at and a desperado love for Daredevil. And episodes of the show still come out each and every Sunday. But now Dave's Daredevil Podcast is part of the Two True Freaks podcast network. That's right, the show can now be found at twotruefreaks.com, home of Earth's mightiest podcasts. And if you haven't tried the show before, I see the want to in your eyes. So take the time to check out Dave's Daredevil Podcast, because sometimes you need a podcaster with a slow hand. Dave's Daredevil Podcast, every Sunday at twotruefreaks.com. Take the dare. I have no self-control.
Are we sitting comfortably?
No, maybe.
Then we'll begin. Okay, this is from the Captain Britain Before Excalibur trade paperback. And it's where I first met Captain Britain. And it's a story called Tea and Sympathy. Script and art by Alan Davis. Letters by Steve Craddock. Colour by Steve White. Editor Chris Gill. And originally presented in The Mighty World of Marvel, number 15, in August 1984. I was 13 when this first came out. It's an 8-page story, because it would have been in a magazine with other stories as well. So, Tea and Sympathy.
Ooh, tea.
Just before this, Captain Britain was in a fight against a strange monster. And unfortunately, a teenage boy was killed by scaffolding falling on him.
Why didn't Captain Britain save him?
Because sometimes you can't save everyone. So it starts in a family home. The people are coming back. Words like, a tragic waste, he was so young, such a lovely boy, but he's at rest now. So obviously after the funeral of the boy who died last issue. The family come in. The mother, Mrs. Scott, puts the kettle on. There's a knock at the door. Answer that, Josie. I'm busy. Don't be awkward, love. I'm getting the tea. I'm busy. Just like any household, they start arguing. Och, for crying out loud, Josie, couldn't you do as you're told? Just this once, we've all had a hard day. You're cheeky little. You're just picking on me. You think it's all my fault? You think I killed Mickey? And there's a silent panel. Life goes on. Alan Davis does this a lot in this story. He's got silent panels where things do not need to be said. I mean, to me, this is quite a tearjerker, because it is family life. There is times when we will yell at each other, and there are times when we'll just hold each other.
Why? Did she say that she killed somebody?
Because obviously this is a family of the boy from last issue, and I think the girl was with the boy, with Mickey.
Well, how did he die?
Well, I'll show you the page. There was a fight, scaffolding fell. Mrs. Scott opens the door, and there, looming in the doorway,
He's very tall. He's taller than the door.
is Captain Britain. He is. He says, Mrs. Scott, I'm sorry to intrude. I've come to apologise. I'm responsible for your son's death.
Dun dun dun.
Yeah, because there's a silent panel again.
Death stare.
What does the mother say?
Jordan, no you're not. I lost Mickey a long time ago.
Yeah. He got in with the wrong crowd. When his dad left us, it was only a matter of time.
Well, who's that then?
That's the granddad. Right, so again, a silent panel. This sort of shows heroics. You can be a hero in comics because you're strong and you beat up the bad guys, but sometimes you're a hero when you own up, when you admit when you're wrong. Okay, so Captain Britain goes in and he meets the family, and the grandfather sort of swoons over him because he has all the newspaper clippings, but Captain Britain is quite sad. And they have a conversation about what heroics means to them. Captain Britain gives a brief outline of what's been going on the past few months in his life, and Mrs. Scott brings in a cup of tea. Suddenly, Megan comes in. How would you describe her?
Monstrous.
Well, she looks monstrous.
Ooh.
And she looks almost like a were-woman. Yeah.
Wait, what
Were-woman,
one?
that means
What
she's...
one?
Sorry.
Was Megan not the one with Mickey?
No, that was Josie.
So that's Meg.
No, that's Megan.
Oh.
See the way we described her as looking a bit like a monster? Then you point to the mother. Do you think she looks like a monster? No. But again, Captain Britain has got, it's all quite sad. And Megan comes in, and she's the one he was fighting before, but she's not really a monster. She's just somebody who's just as lost as anybody else. And she's a friend of Josie's, and that's why Josie and Mickey were at the place where he fought Megan. And Megan takes the blame for Mickey's death as well. So both Captain Britain and Megan are taking responsibility for their actions. And Mrs. Scott is saying, Mickey's dead. Blaming yourselves won't bring him back. Nothing will. The police and the courts were all satisfied it was an accident. Why can't you accept it? I have. And then she starts to look after Captain Britain, sit down, have a cup of tea. Then family life resumes, and there's laughter, there's talking about what Captain Britain did before, we're talking about where Megan comes from, and suddenly in one panel, there are 4 intruders come in armoured suits, and they start shooting. Captain Britain yells to get down, and he goes for the first 2 intruders, and Megan goes for a third, and Captain Britain gets a 4th. Who are you? Why did you attack us? Answer me! And they're gone. How long did that take?
1 page.
1 page. So this is in an 8-page story. You have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages without any action. 1 page of action. And the last page is the aftermath. The house is destroyed. Captain Britain rushes to the family. Are you alright? Yes, we're fine. A bit rattled. Really, your house is destroyed, he says, and he's blaming himself again. And Mrs. Scott goes, it's not your fault, you were attacked. And of course this means the council will have to rehouse us. Again, another silent panel. Right, what's she thinking?
Yippee.
Yippee, what's he thinking?
I destroyed their house.
No, I think he's thinking, huh? I expected her to be cross, and she's quite happy. And what's the last bit?
More tea, anybody?
More tea, anybody?
With Megan and
Josie
in the corner smiling and grinning.
And the
Creepily.
grandfather just looking up and going, oh dear me, not again. I do love this. This is one of the ones I hope you'll read someday, Charlotte. It really helps a comic when you have an artist and a writer who are working well together. And there are quite a few examples throughout comic book history that did happen. There are examples of when artists and comic book writers didn't get on. But this is an example of a writer and an artist being the same person. So they're definitely going the same way because they are the same person. So that is my thing, Captain Britain. There is exciting news because there's a couple of days since we recorded the first half, and in that time, news has come out that there might just be a Captain Britain TV series coming out in the UK soon.
That's the exciting news.
That's the exciting news. Personally, I don't know how they're going to do it because Captain Britain is a bit weird. If you look through this, you've got really weird characters. There's the crazy gang who look like rejects from Alice in Wonderland. There's Wonderland. And there's Gatecrasher, and I think it's called the Technic. I've only ever seen it written, never heard anybody say it. And they are like interdimensional bounty hunters. So people like that. I don't know how to do that.
Bounty not sweet?
Bounty is a sweetie. It's a lovely coconut covered in chocolate.
Creamy coconut.
We could have done that for the little letter B.
Okay, but I think another British character, Union Jack, would be better because he's not really superpowered. He's like a World War I hero who became a World War II hero, who became a modern hero, that type of thing. Legacy character that we talked about in the first episode.
We did. We've had Charlie in the Chocolate Factory. We've had Captain Britain. And we've had me.
Charlotte! Yay!
This has been Marksmess Podcast, brought to you by the letter C of geekery. All characters are property of their owners and not us.
Because we don't own very much cool stuff.
Talk for yourself.
Okay.
Maybe you have a favourite geek thing that begins with C, or even suggestions for future letters. Why not drop us a line and tell us about it? You can contact us by email at mymarksmess@gmail.com.
On Twitter at Marksmess Podcast without the T.
Or on the webpage at marksmesspodcast.blogspot.com.
Or on our Facebook page, Marksmess Podcast.
Thanks to Josh Woodward of joshwoodward.com for the title music.
Next time, the letter D. That sounds more like Alice in Wonderland music. Stop! Bang!